We're live now. All right, so what's up? It's Joel with Prospect Dugout here with JJ up in Tampa at Strong 8. It's a Westside Barbell strength training facility alongside Stance Doctor, which have got a bunch of cages. They got a lot of pros that come in there and hit. So met with them the other day just to kind of see what they got going on here. So I just wanted to stop by and just have JJ kind of just explain what they do. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and about Strong 8.
So I'm the director of performance, pretty much founded S8 along with my wife. And I've been doing this for about 11 years, and I was a victim of linear block periodization, which, long story short, it's a chunked version of strength conditioning where you focus on one thing at a time and cut the volume.
Right.
The conjugate system is basically the opposite of that. We do use the max effort system in our system to raise absolute strength, and that's one of the things that we get approached with quite a bit is, well, how come lifting heavy weights or maximal weights can be good for baseball? You know, how is that not detrimental? The concept is, number one, our max effort volume is not as high as the volume that's done in the max strength system in a linear periodization. Number one. Number two, the max effort movements are the smallest amount of volume that we do. So we take 7 lifts total on a max effort day. For instance, you'll see us pulling heavy deads for a single to achieve that and achieve a true 1-rep max, or squats, or even bench presses for certain positions. And what that does, it allows us to figure out where that athlete is breaking down from a joint by joint angle specification. So once we find that breakdown, then we're able to go into specialized movements and blast that single joint in that specific range of performance, or that deficit, if you will, with higher volumes in a safer setting, so you can start to get your volume of work there.
So are you just working with baseball and softball players then?
Yes, we are very specific to baseball and softball. We do have other athletes as well, but we are essentially the largest baseball and softball specific strength conditioning center in the Bay Area.
How long have you been around?
We've been here for 4 years. We actually just got into Stance Doctor this last year.
Where were we at before that?
We were over at Madeira Beach.
Okay.
And then before that, we contracted throughout St. Pete using multiple different facilities, and kind of tried to travel with the team, but it became more effective for them to come to us with our specialized equipment and technology.
So I was in here today and noticed there were some pro guys in here. So you have pro guys coming in all the time, or?
Yeah, so the issue with your pro guys obviously is the travel and the volume of play. So they only get about 4 months of a real off season, and honestly, right now a lot of them are actually still on a break. They like to take a 2 to 4 week break when they get done, and now the postseason's just wrapped up. But we already have guys from the Brewers in here, Reds organization, Blue Jays. And the concept with them is we're introducing them to the conjugate system this year, and teaching them that with the conjugate system we can actually peak the athlete week over week over week over week, as opposed to building up through one off season and having one peak point at the end of the off season.
So it's like different cycles of routine.
Yeah,
so you're
absolutely.
going for like 4 weeks.
Yeah,
3 weeks?
it's 3-week rotation. So
and then you start over with something else.
Absolutely. And every 3 weeks it allows us to basically get data from all of our max efforts and our singles that everyone gets worried about. But those singles tell us where the athlete's truly breaking down at a maximal effort. And when a guy's on the bump and he's throwing, if he's throwing a fastball, he's throwing max effort. Even when he's throwing a curveball, he's trying to throw a max effort curveball.
He's not just doing max effort with maybe a bench press or a curl. He's using his entire body.
And what we're doing is basically we're activating the central nervous system. So when you take a true 1-rep max, your body has to recruit basically the most amount of motor unit possible, right? Basically as many, think of your motor units as engines. It has to recruit every single engine possible to move that weight.
So you're developing an overall strength as opposed to just a single isometric muscle.
One position or one joint, exactly. And then what that does is the relative strength of that, or excuse me, the absolute strength test shows us where that whole chain, the dynamic system that is the human body, shows us where that whole body breaks down. Because we don't ever break down in our strongest area first, we break down in our weakest area. So a pitcher, if we find out that he's got scapula issues, he's going to break down there. Or if he's got low back issues and we see that fails in a deadlift, we know that he's not sending enough power up his kinetic chain, and it's not coming out.
So you're actually getting more information about a player to help them build their strength, because you're able to see those weaknesses because you're using the body as a whole, as opposed to, I can stabilize myself and do a heavy curl, I can stabilize myself and do a heavy bench press, but when you're doing these bigger lifts. So how can younger athletes, high school athletes and below, utilize, because I know a lot of guys are going to look at it and say, well, that's a lot of heavy weight, and I don't want to throw my back out and this and that. Obviously, you're not just throwing weight up to do whatever, but you're actually, have a strategy in what you're doing. So how could you explain that to a high school parent or a youth parent to say, hey, you need to get out of doing curls and just doing some push-ups or whatever and start doing some full body?
So the first thing that we do is we have a multi-year development system. It's 3 phases. It starts with GPP, general physical preparedness. Then it goes into special physical preparedness and then transformation. Our pro athletes that you see are doing all 3. They're doing your GPP at some point, which is basically your physical base, your foundation.
Right.
Then they move into their specialized work, which is, again, highly specified to a specific joint angle or range of performance. And then we transfer that power basically, or basically into a display of power into a more sport-specific style movement. At the younger level, ages 7 to 11 is generally where we start them out with GPP, and these are things like heavy sled pulls, strength games, medicine ball throws, slams, carries, farmer's carries, loaded carries. What we do there is we build structure in the core. Crunches, sit-ups, all this stuff, it's useless because that's not how the athlete...
Unless you're going for a beach body.
Yeah, exactly. When's the last time you saw a pitcher stand up on the mound and do crunches before he threw the ball? That never happens. He doesn't even actually, have that just a isolated flexion of the torso. It never happens.
Right.
So what we're doing is building structure, activating the stretch reflex, basically building structure for the spine, because the spine is the number one, that's the most important thing. And just to make something clear, when these kids do progress into beyond the general physical preparedness level into what we call our CPD, complete performance, or our special physical preparedness, essentially, once they graduate there, they have built a structure for their spine so their backs are strong. You'll see some of our kids, they'll have some back rounding on a max effort. And we take that into account and notice, okay, we need to build more strength in the back.
Right.
However, understand that the spine also curves. And remember, there's, you have multiple joints in the spine, not just one. So the fact, the fallacy that your spine is supposed to be perfectly straight as you lever through a squat or through a deadlift, sorry, brother. You obviously don't understand that the thoracic spine bends, and so does the lumbar spine, and so does the cervical spine. And that's another thing that separates us, is we train both ends of the spine. At the end of the day, the most dangerous part of a chain is the weakest link. So if your low back is untrained, there's no strength.
So you can basically isolate yourself and have the best form possible, but you're not necessarily, by doing that, you're not necessarily getting stronger just because your form is great.
Exactly. You can have, if you have perfect form, you haven't achieved the true max effort, because it's not a test of what your body can maximally produce. And there's no professional lifter, no one who has perfect form on a true max effort that starts to break down.
Did you bring us lunch too?
So and that's there's a lot of misconceptions. And here's the next thing: if you're worried about your son or daughter,
it just
let's figure it out.
Shut down for a second, and then it started buffering.
Oh, that's good. Okay, yeah.
Now it's back up.
Sweet.
But so understand that if that athlete has developed a structural foundation, there's going to come times in any sport where you trip over first base, right? And you're put in an awkward position.
Right.
Well, guess what? If your body doesn't have the ability to load those tissues in awkward positions and dangerous positions, that's where your injuries are going to occur.
Right, absolutely.
We believe in training all joint ranges to maximal capabilities and building the highest functioning joint at every level and as a unit as possible, because there are going to come times when an arm comes out too far, or you take a short step and you jam your hip up. There's going to be times. No one is perfect. Even the highest performing athletes are. This is why injuries still happen at the professional level. Because not for nothing, but accidents happen. You have to be prepared for that in the training room. The training room prepares you for that. Also understand that for instance, we have pitchers bench, and people get freaked out about that. And what you got to understand is your glenohumeral head, or basically your humeral head, the ball at the end of your humerus inside that makes up your shoulder joint, internally rotates at Mach 27 on a pitcher that throws 100 miles an hour. 27 times the sound of speed is how fast that joint head is internally rotating. So if you're telling me that I can't put an athlete down with his body weight and take a max effort bench press with 200 pounds, you have a functional breakdown. You have an issue with that athlete's joint, and he should not be throwing a baseball at that level. Because the forces that are applied during a maximal throw like that are ungodly. So again, misconceptions.
There's things that you can do that aren't as harmful as
exactly.
No, go ahead. So some of the exercises I was seeing today, like the deadlifts, and then we were doing box squats, and then went into the box jumps. So tell them what a deadlift is going to do to help you as a baseball player, 2 things it's going to do to help you as a baseball player, and then 2 things that a box jump is going to help you do as a baseball player. if you're doing it correctly.
That's a perfect setup. We've specifically used the sumo deadlift almost exclusively with our baseball population. One of the reasons, look at anybody who's stepping into their swing after they cock the bat and they actually go to meet the ball. Look at anybody who's pitching down the mound. You know, we have a bad habit of, well, I shouldn't say we. A certain group of people have a bad habit of claiming linear power in baseball. And let me be honest with you, when you're throwing the baseball and you're swinging the bat, it's lateral power. You're pushing yourself sideways. That's the way it happens. So when you're in a sumo deadlift position, I can kind of show you this here. You're super wide hip set, you're squatting down, and you end up in the same specific range close to lockout when you, as you would go and you'd step into that swing or you'd step down the mound into the throw. It's laterally generated, right? And it isolates the pelvis, the groin, the adductors and abductors, and the muscles that drive you laterally into a rotation, how you finish, which is you finish linear. So the deadlift, there's your answer there, and it's going to increase ground contact force, and that's what a throw and that's what a swing is all about.
Right.
Creating that ground contact force, shoots up the kinetic chain, meets the ball or leaves the hand, right?
And so the box jump is more about training that
Now,
explosive?
the box jump is where we display that absolute strength, and we start to display that through explosive power. Jumping is the truest way to display explosive strength, is the control over one's body weight at a maximal velocity. And again, now this, whereas you go into maximal velocity in your throw and maximal velocity in your swing, you must jump to recognize the explosive power. Cleans are not, cleans, hang cleans, Olympic lifts. They're not explosive lifts. They're speed strength. It's a speed strength sport, is what the Olympic lifts are. Not for nothing, those are also very dangerous lifts for athletes that have no base of a physical foundation.
So you're not just going to jump in and say, let me lift heavy weight.
No,
obviously.
No, you start with it. Yeah, exactly. You start with a physical foundation.
You're going to look like a wuss building
Absolutely.
up, and then eventually.
Once you graduate and you show a structural stability.
But it's building an overall strength. It's not building, hey, I'm just building my legs.
Yes.
I'm building my legs, lower back, upper back, traps, everything.
Exactly. And you'll hear it. Everyone today talks about the kinetic chain and throwing and the swing. It's all about the kinetic chain. It's a full body lift. Bobby, have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks,
I'm
man.
Bobby, by the way.
All right, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Have a good one.
So,
I'll see you guys either tomorrow or Friday.
Absolutely, we'll be here.
I'll be with Joe.
All right, man. So, the concept.
Who was he? He was a pro guy?
That's Bobby Evell with the Blue Jays organization.
Okay, sweet.
His brother's out in Arizona right now. He's also, I think he's in you know where his brother plays? Cardinals?
Not sure.
Anyway.
He doesn't come here though, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're trying to get him out here too. But essentially, the baseball community's accepted now the kinetic chain, right? Well, guess what? The kinetic chain is basically running off dynamic systems theory, where the entire body performs, in unison essentially.
Right.
It's not just aerobic capacity. It's not just anaerobic capacity. It's not just fast twitch fiber.
You're actually using your entire body.
It's a systematic chain of events that's ignited by the central nervous system.
So let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt you, but thinking of it that way, if you have a weaker leg, is that gonna dictate your throwing velocity? Is that gonna restrict that?
We see breakdowns every day. I'll have 4 to 7 mile increases just off of figuring out that one side of a thrower's pelvis is impinged.
So that imbalance is actually probably causing.
Yes, it's inhibiting. What it's doing is it's inhibiting their maximal power output,
and that's
their
what
maximal
leads to
strength.
injuries by
Right?
not.
Exactly. Because what will happen is now the body will compensate for a range or a joint angle that the body can't perform in, so it'll compensate using other muscles it's not supposed to use. Right. So if we have an impinged hip joint, which we often see on pitchers when they slam that leg down, they get that plant leg and go to try to create that positive disconnection, they call it. Problem is if you have an ill-functioning hip joint, you're not adequately sending power from the lower body or the lower half up the kinetic chain, and now you end up throwing with your arm. So whereas they'll
and that's more
the standard medicine will say, oh well, we have a misfunction in the rotator.
You go and you look to the root cause that's causing that, as opposed to just trying to fix
and one of the reasons,
and that may not even be a problem. You may 100%. Not have an issue with the rotator cuff or labrum.
Exactly. The rotator cuff was just the tissue that broke down because you were throwing with your arm,
right? As
opposed to generating power with the lower half. But what you didn't know, because you never took max effort lifts, is you never found there was an issue with your pelvis.
Right.
You could perform in the throw. Why? Because your body's always had this impingement or slowly developed this impingement, and you created some type of a compensation system where now your body throws the more upper half. Exactly. Yeah. And that's where the injury happens. And we see this every day. We see this every day at the pro level, all the way down to little league.
So you had pro guys in here. Do you do special days or work with high school guys? I mean, you mentioned
Yeah, so
about-
today we have two guys, two teams coming in, Largo High School and Lakewood High School. One of them is doing their regen work, so they're going to do FRC, they're going to do body tempering, some trigger point.
So that's a whole squad coming in.
Yep, that's a whole squad. I think they got like 22 guys that come in, and then Lakewood will be in for their upper body day. And again, now there's a good example of a team. They're building a base, so they're doing more volume and more GPP stuff for their upper body to build a physical base because they're so far behind with their upper bodies.
Right.
So they'll come in as a team as well, and you know we'll
and they do hitting here too as well.
Yeah, they'll go into the cages, they'll get on the hit tracks and stuff.
So they're going to
like
go
that.
directly from a workout.
Absolutely, into some type of specific skill work or even practice. You know, they'll run. The coaches will often run practices here because there's space to do some fielding. They'll get in the cages. They'll run BP. You have their guys throwing bullpen, stuff like that.
So how can anybody who's interested in learning more about you guys? How can they find out about you? Instagram.
Yeah, so you guys can message us on Instagram. Just @ @strong8 spelled out. And or you can give us a call 813-760-2171. Talk to me or any one of the strength coaches here.
And what's your website?
www.strong8.com.
And 8 is spelled out.
Yes, EIGHT. Strong EIGHT.com.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you having me stop by. It was
Yes, sir.
a nice environment. It was nice to see these guys doing max effort lower body. It kind of got me a little jealous. I wanted to hop in there on some of them.
Come on. Come on up.
So,
Absolutely.
all right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This was with Strong 8, JJ over here at Strong 8 up in Tampa at Stance Doctor also. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.